Alexander Thompson had just pulled into his driveway at Willow Creek Community, the engine of his modest sedan still humming as he stepped out with a grocery bag in hand. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the neatly manicured lawns, but the peace was shattered when a sharp voice pierced the air. "Excuse me, sir. You there, stop, right where you are." He turned to see a woman in her mid-50s marching toward him like a drill sergeant, flanked by two equally stern volunteers clutching clipboards and wearing matching neon vests emblazoned with HOA enforcement team. She was Victoria Langford, the self-appointed queen of the Neighborhood Homeowners Association, her face flushed with righteous indignation, lips pursed in perpetual disapproval. Her hair was a helmet of tightly curled gray, and her eyes darted suspiciously, as if every resident was a potential criminal. Without a word of introduction, Victoria thrust out her hand. "Your ID. Now. We have reason to believe you're not authorized to be here." Alexander blinked in disbelief. He'd lived in Unit 47 for months, ever since his divorce forced him to downsize from a sprawling family home. But she wasn't backing down. Reluctantly, he handed over his driver's license, watching as she snatched it like contraband. "This is for community security," she snapped, her volunteers nodding vigorously. One of them pulled out a cheap scanner that looked more like a toy than anything official, waving it over the card with dramatic flair. "Unauthorized," the other declared after a fake beep. "We'll hold on to this until we verify." Little did they know, Alexander wasn't just any resident. At 55, with 3 decades in civil engineering and regulatory oversight under his belt, he was the director of the state's HOA Oversight and Ethics Committee, a position that gave him intimate knowledge of every rule, loophole, and abuse in the system. He'd chosen Willow Creek for its quiet appeal after his marriage crumbled, hoping for a fresh start. But now, staring at Victoria's smug grin, he felt a storm brewing. He could have flashed his credentials right then, but something held him back. No, he'd play this out, let the arrogance unravel itself. It started innocently enough, or so it seemed. A few days after moving in, Victoria had knocked on his door with a pamphlet titled Community Harmony Guidelines. "Your lawn's gradient is off by 2 degrees, she'd said, pointing at the gentle slope in his yard. "It could cause drainage issues. Fix it, or face fines." Alexander chuckled at first, thinking it was a joke. But the notices piled up like autumn leaves. Trash bins not aligned precisely north, curtains deemed inappropriate for blocking too much light, even his car's parking angle labeled a safety hazard. Each violation came with escalating threats, typed in bold red letters on official-looking stationery. He tried to fight back at the next HOA meeting, held in the community clubhouse under fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry bees. Dozens of residents sat in folding chairs, murmuring nervously as Victoria presided from a podium like a judge. When Alexander raised his hand to speak, she shut him down cold. "Without proper verification, you have no speaking rights," she declared, her voice echoing. "We can't let just anyone disrupt proceedings." The room fell silent, a few neighbors shifting uncomfortably but saying nothing. It was clear, Victoria ruled with an iron fist, and dissent was dangerous. The harassment intensified. One morning, Alexander found orange cones blocking his mailbox, forcing him to trek to the post office for his mail. "It's under review for compliance," a note from Victoria read. Bills went unpaid. Important letters delayed. It was petty warfare designed to wear him down. He seethed, but instead of exploding, he started recording everything on his phone. The notices, the cones, the glares from her patrol squad. The breaking point came back in that driveway confrontation. As Victoria pocketed his ID, claiming it was protocol, Alexander's blood boiled. Her volunteers hovered like bodyguards, one muttering about protecting our way of life. He pulled out his phone, hitting record discreetly. "This is illegal," he said calmly, but she waved him off. "Community security trumps your so-called rights." That night, he decided, no more games. He'd launch an official investigation through his department, letting the system expose her rot from within. While the wheels turned slowly in the state bureaucracy, Victoria ramped up her campaign. She threatened to shut off his water for unpaid dues he knew he'd settled. No trespassing signs appeared on his lawn overnight, and she organized a community safety meeting where she ranted about the mysterious stranger in Unit 47 posing a threat to families. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some neighbors avoided him. Others sent anonymous notes of support, revealing their own tales of terror under her regime. "She's fined me for my dog's bark tone," one confided. The air crackled with tension, dividing the community into loyalists who feared change and victims hungry for justice. Alexander's complaint hit like a thunderbolt in the Oversight office. Flagged for immediate action, a team of investigators descended on Willow Creek unannounced, timing their arrival for the monthly HOA meeting. The clubhouse was packed, Victoria at the helm, droning on about new Enlightenment protocols when the doors swung open. 3 stern officials in suits marched in, badges gleaming. "This meeting is now under state audit," the lead investigator announced, his voice cutting through the gasps. "We've received reports of severe violations, including identity theft, abuse of authority, and fraudulent practices." Chaos erupted. Victoria's face drained of color as they listed the charges. Fake violations issued to harass residents, a secret WhatsApp group where she and her cronies plotted vendettas, misuse of HOA funds for personal perks like custom posters, unauthorized surveillance cameras, and even a luxury cruise disguised as a team-building retreat. The database they claimed to scan IDs against. Non-existent, just a spreadsheet of grudges. And the the absurd rules unearthed in the audit. Mandatory spiritual lawn maintenance to align with cosmic energies, parking spots assigned based on aura compatibility, fines for garden gnomes deemed disruptive to neighborhood vibes. Residents murmured in outrage, some laughed bitterly, others shouted accusations. "This is tyranny," one yelled, sparking heated debates that nearly turned physical. In the midst of the uproar, Alexander stood up. "I'm Alexander Thompson," he said, his voice steady but laced with fury. "Director of the State HOA Oversight Committee. And I want my ID back now." The room exploded. Victoria stammered, fumbling in her purse, her empire crumbling. This is a witch hunt," she cried, but the evidence was damning. The investigators revealed how her actions bordered on criminal, including holding his ID as potential identity theft. The fallout was swift and merciless. The state dissolved the HOA board on the spot, placing the community under probationary oversight. A temporary board was appointed, with Alexander reluctantly stepping in as president to guide the reforms. Victoria faced the harshest blow, permanently banned from any HOA role statewide, slapped with $47,000 in fines that could force her to sell her beloved home, and referred to the district attorney for identity theft charges carrying up to 3 years in prison if convicted. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing hysterically, denying everything. "I've only ever protected this community," she wailed, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. Neighbors she'd bullied shared horror stories. Arbitrary evictions threatened, lives upended over trivialities. Yet, a faction defended her, arguing the HOA kept property values high and order intact, igniting fierce arguments about freedom versus control, individual rights clashing with collective harmony. As the meeting adjourned, Alexander walked out into the cool evening, the weight lifting from his shoulders. Residents clapped him on the back, relieved and vindicated. But in a final, bitter twist, Victoria shuffled past, muttering under her breath, "Your lawn's gradient is still off by 2 degrees. He paused, shaking his head at the absurdity, wondering if some tyrants never truly surrender. The community was free, but the scars and the debates would linger, a reminder of how power, unchecked, could poison even the quietest suburbs.